Now, another treat, the middle treat is we have our own special Bishop Goodpaster to come and be with us today, and we're so glad. That makes this birthday special.
Well, it's great to be here, and I hope it's special. The special part is that as soon as I'm through, the cake is served, so that will keep you going. You'll have to stay awake for that. It's always a joy as one United Methodist woman to another. We clergy are United Methodist women, and it's has been throughout my ministry an important part of every church that I served and every part of my life. Have celebrated having United Methodist women. I had the privilege at one point in my life of starting a new congregation, and the first two things that we decided to organize was not the administrative board and not the council on ministry. I was trying to remember the time of when we were trying to organize things. First two things we organized were United Methodist women and United Methodist men, and we said this is what it's going to be, and It happened, and so we're grateful for that. And it's always a joy to be with you and to know and to celebrate what United Methodist women have done and continue to do and will do into the future. We have been, as mentioned last night, and I've been making a few comments along the way about the trip that Deborah and I, and actually there's 6 of us from our annual conference who just got back from Southeast Asia. We visited in Vietnam and in Laos and in Cambodia with a little sojourn into Thailand to be a part of what God is doing in that part of the world. And it's astounding for me. I serve, as many of you know, as the presiding bishop over 3 of those countries, over Vietnam, Laos, and Thailand, as our United Methodist Church gets planted in those places. And so I was there to do more annual conferences. I just can't get enough of annual conference. I mean, it's just so much fun. So I've done 3 in the last 2 weeks as we gathered together. But the reports out of Vietnam and Laos are truly inspiring. In the last 18 months, we have doubled the number of churches in both places. We now have 120 United Methodist churches in Vietnam, and for someone of my age and my era, the name of the country Vietnam stirs many memories. And now to be the presiding bishop over that place where so many young American men and women gave their lives. And now we have 120 United Methodist churches. And one of the vibrant parts of that are the Methodist women. And we heard reports of some of the mission work that they're doing. I'm going to tell another one of those stories later this afternoon. We have 110 United Methodist churches in Laos. And it's just, God is doing absolutely amazing things. We visited in Hanoi, and for those of you who remember the history, we know Hanoi. I visited, we had an opportunity to visit the prison where our POWs were held. And they have on display John McCain's flight suit that he was wearing when he was captured. We traveled there. We now have 5 United Methodist churches in Hanoi. Is God good? I mean, this is amazing. Just absolutely astounding. So we're having this annual meeting. We were in Ho Chi Minh City for one of the annual meetings, and we're hearing reports. And one of the great things about annual conferences over there, I'm trying to figure out how to do this here. We have testimony time. People actually get up and tell what God has done in their lives at annual conference instead of hearing reports, but that's another story. But we had this wonderful couple get up. They are from Da Nang, and she was giving her testimony, and he is a singer-songwriter. They were referring to him as the Charles Wesley of Vietnam. He's writing all these wonderful hymns now for the church. And they were talking about the needs in Da Nang. They were talking about the church, and it's one of the areas of Vietnam. Once you get outside those two major cities of Ho Chi Minh City and Hanoi, into the countryside, there's a lot of poverty. There's just tremendous needs all over the country. And our United Methodist Church is doing work in those places. So she's giving her testimony about what's happening in Da Nang. And we're listening and celebrating what God's doing. And as that meeting was ending, Mike Collins, who was with us, Mike and I both picked up our little, whatever these things are. Mine's off, by the way. I hope yours is. And so we were checking our emails, and we get an email information about the Stop Hunger Now project that we did at annual conference. Some of you who were at annual conference back in June, we did a Stop Hunger Now project from Western North Carolina. It was $100,000, wasn't it, Mark? That we put together bad food and all these kinds of things, and sent it to Stop Hunger Now, and had no idea where it was going to end up. And the email told us that our contribution from Western North Carolina ended up in Da Nang. And I said, God does it again. It's just astounding. But that's part of our history. And that's part of your history, our history as United Methodist women. I want to share just a few verses this afternoon as we celebrate that history and that heritage, and begin to ponder a little bit about who we are and where we are now and where we're going. Some verses from the 12th chapter of Luke's Gospel. Luke chapter 12, I'm going to begin reading at verse 54. And if you have one of those Bibles, this is all in red, which means these are the words of Jesus, okay? Jesus is addressing the crowds, so you get this image of all these people who've gathered around to listen to Jesus. And he says to them, when you see a cloud rising in the west, you immediately say, it's going to rain. And it happens. And when you see a south wind blowing, you say, there's going to be a scorching heat. And it happens. You hypocrites, you know how to interpret the appearance of earth and sky. Why do you not know how to interpret this present time? How to interpret this present time. The question of how we interpret the time has been haunting the church ever since Jesus made that comment to the crowds. How do we interpret what's going on? Jesus basically says you're pretty good at interpreting the weather. I mean, even in those days, before they had satellite technology and all these other gizmos that we have today to track storms and know exactly what neighborhood they're moving into and how intense they're going to be, it's just, I watch those weather reports in yellows and reds and oranges, and I think, this is amazing. Well, you know how to interpret all that, Jesus says. And we do it pretty well today. Why can't you interpret the things of God? Isn't it amazing how easy it is for us to get sidetracked and be able to understand and interpret so many different things in the world, and yet miss what God is up to? Historically, Methodist women seem to have been able to interpret the present time better than anybody else in the church. Can I say that again? I'm tempted to say better than bishops, but I don't think I will. I didn't say that, okay? Historically, Methodist women have been able to interpret the time better, maybe anticipate the time better than the rest of the church.